Good morning, Green Room. How's everybody today? Well, we're looking through the news this morning. I don't know if I turn on the TV, whatever it was. I thought for sure we'd have the futures down something of some significance. And it's like a yawn here. And it's like, okay, Vietnam, Trump talks end abruptly. Like, oh my God, what happened there? GDP down. Oh my God. Nada. Just trading here. We're looking at the E-mini futures here. Just so far trading inside of yesterday's relatively narrow range. Buyers stepped up again. On a little dip, buyers stepped up again. And to use the term irrational exuberance at this point in the trend, at resistance with internals where they are, which are reviewed. Well, this kind of a pattern doesn't display irrational exuberance, but because where we would get like an accelerated move to the upside, it's just consolidating at resistance, which is bullish, but it's a narrow range, which you can see here on the weekly chart. And as the ranges begin to contract, you're getting closer to a potential at least break below a prior bar's low, regardless of a weekly time frame or a 5-minute time frame. So at this point, what could drive this market up? I would imagine some news coming out. Seems to react to news quite a bit, but or the lack of. Anyway, this consolidation, even after a topping tail that made a new high, regardless of the reasons why it should pull back, it's not. And while that, if that is ignoring certain things that strongly suggest a retracement, or it's just so damn bullish, it's beyond, rationale. I don't know. But in any way, the patterns here are saying do not get aggressively short anything that looks like this, whether it's the market or a stock. Yet we're seeing some cracks in the wall. Like I mentioned yesterday here in the room, the healthcare providers look kind of nasty. The break square, again, Dan will cover some gaps, but here's a strong stock. And look at that weekly time frame right there. After a run up, a consolidation, and that's, the current weekly bar where it looked like it was getting ready to accelerate higher. And now, it had this dip. I mean, if it recovers from here, that would be amazing. But this is a bullish trend. And into earnings, I mean, it looked, obviously, not it looked, it was, expectation was it was going to do well and push up. Because that's what the pattern suggests. Look at the volume. Yet it's gapping down. It was as low as 74. And that's a nasty gap under, a bullish bar that was closing near the high. So while it's at support here, I'm not so anxious to look at this on the short side today, but I'm going to be watching it because this happens to be one of my go-to stocks as far as looking for it to continue to move higher because of the trend. And that appears to be over right now. So NASDAQ futures, same story. Guys, give me a second here. All right, so bottoming tail bar, again, consolidation. Story's the same, and I've said this a few mornings, is that, markets can move together, but there's usually bigger discrepancies than what we see right now, and they're kind of all moving in lockstep. It's a bit unusual. The transports are showing some relative weakness, which you can see here. They started, to roll over, and sometimes they do lead as well as the Russell. So this is something to keep an eye on as well, especially, the Russell gapped down yesterday into some support. So not unusual for buyers to show up, especially in an uptrend, but this began to lead lower where the others are going sideways. And sometimes that is a heads up sign of the market beginning to see some distribution. Still in an uptrend, but again, another weekly bar that is red, meaning it's closing below its open, yet it has not broken below a prior bar's low. So you can see here on the 60-minute chart, which appears to be setting up as a
head and shoulders top. So this 156 level here, and I don't look at it exact, forget the 05. I just put the line there in the area where it is. Be aware of that. Set an alert to see if it breaks down below that. And if it does, it opens up the door down to this level because there's a void here. And showing the crack. Well, I wouldn't call this a crack, Tony, so to speak. You might call it I don't know, maybe crack or a little separation, whatever, a little sign of weakness. But kind of like, we could say a crack in the armor. I've used that term. In any event, it's showing signs of weakness where, excuse me, the Qs are going sideways here. And buyers stepped up again on the little dip yesterday, refusal, but, a little gap down inside the range here, going nowhere. So buyers aren't giving it up and sellers aren't getting aggressive yet. That hasn't worked. We're like here shorting the market at the 200. It worked for a day, and then in the morning it stepped up again. So, you have to be respective of the strength of this market and not want to get in its way too quickly. So I use the term event. What is an event? Something that jumps out at the chart and says like, oh my God, that's for real. Dan calls it a something, but it's something that makes you take notice. And so as I look at this chart here, there's really nothing bearish that makes me take notice and say I should think about aggressively getting short. Whereas something like this here, a gap up from a red bar and a wide range bar, that's something that makes you take notice, that says, hey, that's powerful. So, we'll see and wait for that event to happen. And when it does, there'll be no doubt as to what you or I or anybody else sees that says that doesn't look good. Just simply saying it that way. Again, Dow, same story here, going sideways, red bar beginning to happen at resistance, and we'll see if it follows through. And the thing is, today, is it such a bad thing that their talks in Vietnam end abruptly, as they're saying, and maybe Trump walked away from the table? I guess that's just part of negotiation at time and see who's going to blink. We'll see where it goes. But now this GDP, which was so, talked about bullishly. And so, I don't know. We'll just see. We have obviously the technical signs of a corrective action beginning to happen, as well as, we know it's happening because, look, you can see the deterioration in breadth here. So I don't have Facebook up there, but it just keeps the chart. Anyway, so, you can see what's happening here. So when the market started out here, the blast off, that's what it should do, off of a low, but the slow deterioration here and sentiment up where it's at. So we'll see. And bonds are down here a little bit. We'll see if they crack here. That's actually could be good for the markets, for interest rates to move up, since there's concerns of inverted yield curve. So, and gold up a little bit, but within this choppy corrective pullback, no big deal there. And oil looking to attack the old high. We'll see if it can get through it. And if it does, and we've looked at these energy stocks, some of these and other ETFs, that try to move down and flipped right back up again. So a lot of wait and see as to whether this market is going to continue higher, go lower, or go sideways. Right now, it's pretty choppy, and we'll see what happens. And as we do day to day. So, all yours, Dan.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Um, yeah, I got two mute buttons, so they both have to be off. Yeah, sorry. I was just quickly saying, yeah, with Greg, with the bad news, China, Cohen testifying, everything, got Groundhog Day again, closing at the highs. Open positions, insight covered call looks great. Tandem, we closed yesterday at a $16 gain through the covered call campaign. MJ put spread looks good, but over the high, 30-minute high, this looks like a directional. Weekly, there's nothing wrong with 40 bucks on the weekly, but the pot stocks are more volatile, that's for sure. BRC, we're still long stock on this gap reversal breakout. It needs to get going here, but the weekly and monthly are still fine. VLRS stopped us out yesterday at a nice gain. That was a 1, 2, 3 from a base. IYT call spread looks fine. Zen, we never triggered. AGN, if this one does trigger, it looks fantastic now. Remember we talked about this yesterday with 3-4 more days will be overhead resistance if it triggers. EXAS, we have a covered call. That looks great. And we were also looking for a put spread for the weekly option trader. Papa Echo, long stock, it's pulled in. We just got to let it play out. Yeah, Robert, we didn't get a fill either for the weekly. But, we'll still keep an eye on it. Guild, we got puts, a debit put bear spread, so it's a mildly directional bearish. ACB was a pot stock we added the other day. Here's another one, GTBIF. Well, we did not trigger this one though, but I like it. Tagadef, this is the one we got into. Pulled in, looks fine. Whiskey Bravo, I'm watching for a put spread, let it settle down. IONS, I was out over lunch, but look at this beast. Look at this 15-minute buy setup. Wow. That's a picture of beauty. Garmin, I'm still watching. Echo Alpha, we did a put spread yesterday. It's retraced, but nothing to do. LRCX, we have a call spread, gap and down, so that's good. Newell, we shorted stock, and we're up nicely. We shorted under the low. Look at that! Is wow. When I just stare at something and then you start salivating. I got to do a chart lesson on that. I'm not going to do it now, of course, but that is what's called a quadruple no-brainer short. Look at the dailies bearish. Look at this. This is, Greg, do you remember the old days? This is what we called a late day breakdown. Basin at the low, bearish daily, 2 attempts to break out, lower highs, green bars ignored, getting tight into the declining 20. Bam. You create that breakdown by, shorting 10,000 shares. And then we had another strategy one time. If it didn't go down when you shorted 10,000 and then it started moving up, you cover and go long. Because for a scalp, I wouldn't swing it long with that ugly, daily, but you get the concept of what I'm talking about. I actually learned that all right, so that's all our opens and the Qs, call spread. I actually learned that concept in the book Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. And I forget, maybe, yeah, I guess it was Jesse Livermore who did it. But it reminds me of kind of something Buffett might do too. He says, hey, if I want to start accumulating a lot of shares in a railroad, He said, I start off by shorting it. He says, I want to see the demand or lack thereof for me selling my shares. And then once he got that indication of, hey, all my short shares, these guys absorbed them in a second. They gladly took them off my hands. Then that was his confirmation to go long. But if he couldn't get filled on shorting them, then nobody wanted them. Sky here, 2085, bearish gap. We'll keep an eye on it. Yeah, Neil, ride the slide. Actually, it was, what's his name? Bill Knotts actually came up with that term, you know, just riding a beautiful little intraday downtrend. I sent a couple gap plays just in a little text alert to our swing advisory letter. Now this one, look, it was gapping to 18 bucks. So for those of you who got the text, I wrote in there, you know, gap down after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days down, fluid. What was my bias? Anyone? When this was at 18 bucks pre-market, was it long, short, or indifferent? Stock falls. Exactly. Stock falls 20-something% in a week, and then is gapping down, you know, another X%. Buy a 5 or 10 minute high. But look, it's doing it pre-market. So that's what we call a gap and snap. It's, you know, it's just kind of a short-term exhaustion trade, but the pre-market is messing it up for me. Billy, 21 bucks. That's bullish. Maybe, you know, it's not a tier 1, but maybe 30-minute high. We'll keep an eye on that. Fitbit, I was watching. It actually closed strong yesterday. Daily, weekly, monthly. And now it's getting its head chopped off. Look at 590 right here under this month and a half of consolidation. So that again is telling me, I don't care how cheap it is. Oh, was it earnings? People are not interested in the stock. NRG 4278. Well, it's gapping up here to a lot of resistance. We'll come back to it. ICPT, boom, pre-market. Look at this run, 91 to 110. That is a big run pre-market. Now it's 102. It sounds like a biotech, ICPT. We'll come back to it. Fold I like. I put it in. So why do I like this? 1290. Look, why do I like this? It's gapping just over the week's high. Target, you know, high 13s. Ladam, what is step 2 on gapping trades? Compelling what? Where? Because it's actually a compelling setup on the daily with a price void. But step 2, you're half right. It's intraday. There you go, Robert. Robert gave you an assist. Do you know how to play baseball, Ladon? He gave you an assist there. Yep, so there you go. DDS, big old gap. I wouldn't swing it, it's too extended. But if this opens flat, DDS 15-minute chart, that is a picture of beauty, beauty, beauty on the 15-minute chart. I'm going to put that in a window, particularly with the market gapping down. If this opens flat and can trade over yesterday's high, that's a day trade buy. C's, you know, 26 bucks. It's gapping there. I got no interest. 149, gapping down a little bit. We'll come back to it. See, my sole goal right now is to get us some tier ones. 45.62. Sell setup on the weekly. This ain't bad. It's gapping a resistance, but small little breakout failure, and the weekly suggests that it should go through that. So I like this 30-minute low. PBR, it's a mess. Monster, it's bullish gap, but it's too big. Lima Bravo, 26 bucks. Here, I put this in the text alert this morning. This is a tier one. Look, it's gapping under 2 months. Step two, compelling intraday bearish setup. So that's why I put them in a window right here. Let me move that to a 5-minute chart. That's tier one right there. HPQ 20 and change. Wow, it's amazing. These big cap tech stocks can just get clobbered like this. Wow, the option sellers again are getting their clocks cleaned. That's a bearish gap, but too excessive. APA, 30-minute high maybe. It's slopping around here. Keep an eye on this. Hey, you know what we used to do when we had my trading room in Irvine, whether they're students or just people in the trading program? I would assign stocks. They're like, all right, I'll take this one, I'll take this one. So who wants to take APA? Now this one, I say, yeah, let's keep an eye on it, but I can't keep an eye on 30 things. Here's it. This one I like, Crocs. I put it in this middle chart. That's a nice bearish gap. It can go down to the 24s. Square was a bearish gap, but no great pattern. So tier two. This was a beautiful close on the daily. They're getting clocked way down here, but it's excessive. BMY I have as a put spread candidate. It's gapping above here. See, so that's a beautiful put candidate if it sets up intraday. SLG is getting clocked. 80. Well, I'm going to put that in, even though it's a biotech, maybe we can get a call spread. I'm going to put that in a window. That looks great. This little guy, the gap's too big. That gap's too big on JD, and look the way it's coming in aggressively pre-market. We'll come back to it. Budweiser, it's an ADR bullish gap. Maybe put spread. It's a reverse head and shoulders on the weekly. See that? That's a beautiful. That's a textbook reverse head and shoulders right there. SLCA, nothing. These are leftovers now. Wow, what trade is